Alright, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back. We're going to be doing our part 2 of my favorite Pokemon from each game generation, however we want to do it. Today's video, we're going to be discussing Gen 2/4, the Johto region, so strap on it. Alright, so starting off with number 1, we have the Fire-type starter, Typhlosion. Now, what is there I can say about Typhlosion that I feel like in a lot of videos hasn't been said? One, it's a really good design. It's simple. It's just, I think he's supposed to be like a hedgehog or something, or at least that's what I think Cynical is supposed to be, and he's just supposed to be a bigger hedgehog or something like that. With he's got like the fire collar or whatever, and it's just Flame Wheel, his iconic move. Again, I'm not really looking at this from a competitive aspect, but it's just like, from what I recall, that was almost like one of the first times that we actually had a signature move for a Pokemon, specifically a starter Pokemon. Later on, and with Kalos, with like Greninja and everything, you got your you like your Water Shuriken for Greninja, and I don't know what the other two were because I didn't really care for them all that much. But it was just also in the anime with the show, you had Ash's Cyndaquil, which, from what I remember, again, it's been years since I've seen the show. I just remember it being adorable as fuck, man. Like, it's just, and then when he turned into this dude who's just like, and he's just like, the flames just like, it was one of those things that was just like, okay, because it was, in my opinion, it was one of the first times, like, from starter wise, from like when I was younger, it went from like somewhat adorable to like monster, which I guess is kind of like, now that I think about that and I say that out loud, that's almost all the starters. So ignore that. But yeah, it's just, I don't know, it's just something about him. I was just like, okay. When I first picked him, because I believe I got, yeah, it was gold. I had gold when I was younger. When I first picked him, because when I was younger, I always liked the fire starters, and it wasn't up until when they started repeating the fire fighting type that I was just like, all right, I'm sick of the fire type. I want something else, just because it's like, like 3 generations in a row. I was just like, this is just kind of boring. I didn't want to deal with that anymore. And honestly, and that's why Typhlosion is my number 1 from the Johto games. It's just alright, and starting up with number 2, we have Crowbat. Now, Crowbat was, again, one of these more recent add-ons to the team. One of the reasons being is that when I was younger, I didn't really quite understand how the friendship mechanic worked. And I was also that, like I said in the last video, I was just that kid who only trained their starter, so I had like a level 70, Typhlosion or Charizard or whatever, and I had a level 5 Pidgey or Ho-Ho. No, not Ho-Ho. Ho-Ho's the legendary. Not Hoo-Hoo. The owl Pokemon, I don't. You know what I'm trying to say. But it was just, and when I was young, I was like, oh. And once I got, like, it wasn't until about Heart Gold, and even then it was like a few years into that, I was like, okay, let me actually look at how this shit's supposed to work, actually. And I was like, oh, okay, so that's how that works. And then so whenever I first got my first Crobat, I was just like, oh, oh yes, this is nice. I love this. And so it's just, ever since then, it's just, if I have a chance to be able to use a Crobat, a lot of times I will, specifically from the gen like Heart Gold, which I replay a lot, or I've replayed several times. Probably my most, in all honesty, it's like my favorite Pokemon game. It's just everything. I try to get a Crobat. Like I was doing a Nuzlocke run, probably about a few years ago on that. It was around the same time I was doing a Pokemon Red Nuzlocke, and I was just like, all right, I'm definitely trying my best to get Crowbat, because I just know how good he is and how he. I never did manage to get to Crowbat, but I always try to get it. I always try to catch a Zubat as early as I could, so that was I could get that Crowbat, because it's just such a good mon. It's a simple design. It's really good when you're using it for battle, and it's just the fact that you get this Golbat, which, like, if you've ever played the original Red and Blue games, it's just like this ugly son of a bitch, and you're just like, let's face it, you never really liked them because you just found them everywhere. The meme is like, oh hey, I'm walking into a cave and there's the Zubats, and another, and another, and another. And so I like the fact that you actually had to take your time to work with them and then get your girl back, and it's just like, oh, it's another go back. And so when you first finally got it to evolve, you're just like, oh my, this is so cool. Like, it actually, I'm like, oh my god, I love this. And it's just, when I first got, the first time I got one, I was just like, oh yeah, oh yes, 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 I love this. And that's why Crowbat is number two. All right, and starting with number three, we have Ampharos. The Ampharos is one of those Pokemon that it's one of several Pokemon that I feel like everyone loves Ampharos, or maybe not love, but everybody is at least fond of Ampharos. I haven't really seen anybody ever say that they hate Ampharos for any reason. The Lighthouse Pokemon, it's obviously memorable in the storyline for the Johto games because you have to go all the way to Cianwood, yeah, the fighting gym town. I can't remember the names off the top of my head, but you had to go to the gym. You had to get the medicine so that way you can give it back to Jasmine to help heal the sick Ampharos that's got in the lighthouse. And honestly, seeing, I love it when Pokemon brings in, like, shows actual uh uses of Pokemon and, like, just in day to day life by having a Lanfros or Ampharos, not Lanfros, but either way it still works because he's acting as a lamp. He's in the lighthouse, and he's able to guide the ships safely into port. And I think that's just something that's really interesting, is just being able to see, like, oh shit, there's a Pokemon and he's doing something, and it's just one of those things you're just like, huh, that's so interesting. It's like, I know that a lot of the games, like, they kind of hint at this, but for me, that was like one of the first times that I actually saw a Pokemon being used for almost a mundane task. And for some reason, it doesn't seem as mundane when you're using the Pokemon with it. It's just like, huh. It just brings like a quality of life slash almost like a heroic aspect to it, in my opinion. That there's this Pokemon, they're not being used for battle, but they're still playing a vital role in the world. Because let's face it, lighthouses are or at least were super important in the real world, because you needed them so that way ships could safely dock and go leave because of fog and everything else, because they didn't have the technology back then to make sure that they didn't run ashore, they didn't run into other boats and anything else. And so by having that, it just, even though it's something like that simple, the fact that it still brought it out. It's just like, huh, that's actually really cool. And then he's just a powerhouse in battle. Like, you know what I mean? He's electric type. You get him really early on in the Johto game, or yeah, you get him pretty early on in the Johto games, and then it's just like stays with you through the entire. He stayed with me through the entire time. Again, going back to the Nuzlocke that I was playing with Heart Gold, I made sure I tried my best to get a Mareep and train it up, because I just knew that if I had this Pokemon on my team, I'd be good. I'd be set for later on, because I just knew how strong it was and how powerful it was. And just, again, going back to its design, it's, even though it probably shocked the shit out of you, it's so adorable. Like, it just want to hug it so badly. And don't get me started on that 5 foot real life Mareep doll that's like $500. Like, if I could afford that, I would do it in a heartbeat. Have that shit on my bed, sleep with it, because it's just so cuddly, and it's just, you just can't go wrong with that. And that's why Murray Ampharos is number three. All right, number 4, as you can tell in my hands right here, is Umbreon. Honestly, I feel like I don't even really have to do this much explaining of why Umbreon's up there. It's just honestly, just look at this design. It's adorable. He is my son. He is my child. I will love and protect him. And don't you dare speak ill on my son. In all honesty, up until the point where if they ever do introduce a dragon type Eevee evolution or evolution, this is number one. It's it's honestly, like I said, in my opinion, it's the best evolution. It's better than the original Jolteon, Vaporeon, and Flareon. Better than Espeon, which that might be that might be blasphemy to some people, but guess what? Most of your moves on Espeon aren't going to be able to affect my boy. And then Leafeon and Glaceon, they're fine. They're not. It was cool getting them. They're not horrible, but they're not fantastic either. And then there was Sylveon, which was the first. No, was it? I think that was the first fairy type that was introduced whenever Kalos came around, because that was when the fairy type was introduced. But I could be wrong. Do not quote me on that. I'm also not going to spend the time looking it up real quick. But it was an evolution that was a fairy type, and that was just. I use the Sylveon every now and then. I just, in all honesty, the fairy type I don't really care for, but that's just because as you can tell by that right there in the background, I'm a dragon fanboy. Dragons are my favorite type in Pokemon, so whenever they got nerfed because of that, I was just like, I was a little salty. But it was understandable because let's face it, with the dragon types, there wasn't that many counters to them. But this isn't about dragons. This is about my son. In fact, here I have 2 of them, which is probably, yeah, out of all the semi Pokemon merch I have more Umbreon than anything else. I do have the Charizard Amiibo, which you can see right in front of Pikachu. Um, but yeah, it was just, again, this goes back. It wasn't until when I was a little bit older, because like I said, when I was a kid, I didn't really understand how to work the Pokemon a lot, unless it was just strictly one Pokemon. I trained that up, and that was about all I really needed. Made my life harder, or made my game harder, but it somewhat worked. It wasn't until I was older and I was like, okay, and I believe it was a Pokemon Coliseum when I first got to actually use an Umbreon, because as you know, you started out with 2 Umbreon and then Espeon, and I think that was kind of like where my or at least my fondness of Umbreon first came from, because I was just like, oh, so this is so cool. I did, honestly, I don't even think I knew how to get an Umbreon at the time. And so when I finally was older and I was like, every now and then whenever I'm playing Pokemon and I get to it, I'm really into it, I would definitely try to fill out the Pokedex. And so when I finally got an Umbreon and I used them, I was just like, it's just love at first sight, if I'm being real. And so it was just using it, and then just being able, whenever later on, whenever they were doing like the Pokemon and Me, I believe that's what it was called, where you're able to actually pet, feed, and play with your Pokemon, I was just like, Umbreon, you just, my child. And so it's just, that just really solidified for it for me. And honestly, just this right here, he right here. Oh boy, oh shit, here come that boy. That. Alright, I'm just gonna end it on that because I dishonored him. I'm sorry. So that's why he is number 4. Alright, number 5, we have Alligator. Now, this is one of those few times to where I try to limit on the list, like I said before, to at least one starter. Try to have no legendaries, just to be on just because that's how I wanted this list to be. But whenever I was going through and I was looking through it, because I like with any team I have, I still like to have some sort of a type diversity, really. And so for Alligator, hands down, is my second favorite starter from the Johto games. In all honesty, whenever I go and replay Heart Gold, I never have like a definitive answer on who my starter is going to be. I take a look in the consideration. I was like, what do I need more? Do I need a fire type or do I need a water type? And then I'm just like, the more I think about it, it's like, you know what? I can easily. Then there's some there are at least some Pokemon that can learn good fire type moves, and I can deal with that. But if I really want to do like cause of the HMs and everything that were in the older games, I was just like, you know what? I'm gonna need Surf. So I always picked for Alligator because the other water type Pokemon like Quagsire, he's cool. I like him, but I don't like using him all that much just because he's just so derpy that I there are just times where I just like I can't deal with you. I don't want to deal with you at all. And so it's just, and then he's just like his pre-evolution crocodile, like it's just like he's bursting out of an eggshell because he's got like the the unitard and everything like as an eggshell almost. Totodile is just like, I remember when I was younger, I had a t-shirt, Pokemon t-shirt. It was the Johto Journeys. Totodile was front and center in that shirt, and he just stood out. He was just so cool, and he's just like so he had such a great personality in the show, and I think that's part of the reason why I like Totodile as much as I do, just because he had such a great personality. He was just so, from what again, I haven't seen the series in years, so I could be misremembering, but he was just so upbeat and like Totodile, and I was just like, yeah, Totodile. I totally know what you mean. And then when he turned into Alligator, he just like, I'm just like, okay, yeah, and he just like, just looked like he's ready to fuck shit up, and just he's like, I'm here to kick ass and take names, and I'm just like, fuck yeah, you are. But one of the things is like, even if it is an underpowered move, but one of the things that I always do is I give him bite. Even if it doesn't really make sense at the time. I give him bite or crunch, or one of those two, because he's a giant alligator or crocodile. Why would I not do that? Simple design, but effective. Great personality from the show, and he's just, in all honesty, like, he's a bro. He is a bro. That's the best way I can describe him. That is why he is number 5. Tyranitar. Tyranitar is the second set for the pseudo legendaries for Gen 2, or in the games. It's a rock dark monster. It's almost like Godzilla. It is Godzilla, because I know in Gen 5, whenever they're doing the Poke movies, they use him as a stand-in for like Mecha Godzilla, but Mecha Tyranitar. He starts off as a Pupitar, or is it Puppy? I don't know how to pronounce it. I don't know how to pronounce it. Anyway, he starts off with that, then he turns into his little cocoon, Larvitar, and then he turns into that giant monster, and he's just like, the first time I went against him was, I feel like one of the Elite Four members had him, or maybe not, but the first time I went against him, I was just like, what the fuck? Oh, no. That, like, again, when I was younger, the starter that I picked was Typhlosion. He would kick my ass, and then I would go and train to come back and kick his ass, and I was just like, he was always just like this giant force of nature for me to go against in the games, because he's just like, I was just like, come on, die. And I was just like, spam Flame Wheel over and over. I was just like, I will burn this rock. I'm gonna burn this rock to the ground. And so it was just one of those things. It was, for me, is a lot of it has memories of it being an obstacle to overcome. And then when I finally was able to get one, I was just like, I felt almost like a ad came around. It's like, huh, the obstacle's now with me, in a sense. And it's just like I said, in my opinion. I believe he was also in the I remember him being. I think he was in the original Pokemon Mystery Dungeon games, Red and Blue version. He was part of the team. I believe he was part of the team with Alakazam. Team Alakazam. I think it was him, Alakazam, and I feel like there was a Charizard with him. I could be wrong about that. I could be wrong about him being on that team. I just remember love it, and it's just like this goes back to the whole Gen 2 in general. I really loved like the color design, and this sounds weird, but they just seemed almost a little bit more vibrant than any of the other ones, than any of the other Pokemon from in those games and from that generation. And it's just like, oh, okay, yeah, no, I really like the. It's just the design and everything. He looks awesome. That's literally all I can say. And so it's just. Alright, and that has been the episode for Johto, Gen 2, Gen 4, and any games dealing with Johto. As always, leave a like down below if you like the video. Comment down below. Let me know what some of your favorite Pokemon from the Johto region is. Your favorite team. What did you think about the video? Everything else. Share it with your friends. Let me know down below what you think. And y'all have a fantastic day, and I will see y'all later.